What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. It's still spooky season, and there are still movies like this, and I'm still reviewing them. So make sure to click that like and subscribe button, because we're going to get into Carved. Carved! It's the newest Hulu original to drop during Halloween, which sounds trepidatious, and probably is. But it depends on what it is that you look for in a horror movie. This movie's being billed as a comedy. I think it's important that you say horror comedy and not just straight up comedy, because it is very much a horror movie, first and foremost. But it's not scary. I mean, to some people it'll be scary, but it's most likely not scary. So, what is Carved? Well, first of all, it has audio description, and the audio description was excellent, fantastic. I really enjoyed the track to this. It's really well done. The description of the violence and the gore here is quite exceptional, all things considered, and just even the setting that they're in when they go to this sort of, like an old-timey festival thing. I don't know how else to say that, but that's sort of where this thing starts to take place, and it's a group of teens, who go into this, and really the whole thing is really dives into the one violence that this film has, which is on a high level. This is a film I would not show to little kids, definitely. So it may seem silly, but the violence is not. The violence is really over the top. So it is about, and it's going to sound really stupid, and you're like, oh, I can show my kids that. And it's going to be like, yeah, listen to me. I don't know. So a group of teens unexpectedly show up at a festival for pumpkin carving to find out only that one of the pumpkins has become sentient and is now alive and is going to murder everybody, and does so in extremely gory fashion. So one of the pumpkins sees the murdering of its kin, of its brothers and sisters, the carvings of its brothers and sisters, and comes alive and starts attacking all of the carvers, and for daring to put smiles into the pumpkins. So if you've ever had a weird feeling about cutting into a pumpkin, does it have a soul? Well, this film would argue that they do. This is like produced by whatever the PETA would be for pumpkins. You know, those pumpkins, you don't quite understand what they're going through when you carve those eyes and those mouths into them. And those weird designs. And that's it. And then it's just sort of like there's a huge massacre, which knocks out most of the characters at the top, and then you're left with sort of like a handful of characters, and then it just becomes basically like a slasher movie at that point, where like slowly one by one they get picked off until you have like like the remaining ones that left at the end. And so it becomes about like, well, who's going to survive this? Who's going to make it to the end? And like no one dies in a nice way in this movie. Just like nope. No, I don't remember there being like a single like, oh, that was an easy death. The thing is that the pumpkin has like vines, and that come up out of it, and it uses these vines and shoots the vines through people, uses it to like decapitate, maim, cut off body parts, I don't know, lots of different things. I'm trying to think like all the various ways. There's a character that's decapitated and then it uses the vines to puppet his body. That was an interesting description. Um, I just, I, every time somebody would die, I'd be like, whoa, shit. Like, they do the thing that we love to do in horror movies now where something comes through the back of your head and then out your mouth. That happens. Um, so, yeah, it's a bloody sequence of events that happens at this carving festival. And then the pumpkin uh, has a mission, basically, which is to stop all who have carved from being alive. So it's not gonna, it's gonna keep going until it has all of them. So it's interesting to watch how that plays out, how they try to get away in like the world's worst getaway vehicle, and how, you know, there's a stoner character here that for me doesn't really work. It was one of the things I was kind of like at a certain point, I was like, oh my God, it's the worst point in time to have a stoner character. I mean, it's already a comedy, but he just kind of felt like obnoxious in and of like at the point where he's needed. Like he was at the beginning of the film, I was like, okay, well, there's a stoner here. Cool. But then later on, when it comes back around and you're like, oh God, he's back. I did not enjoy his presence because he seemed like for a stoner, he seemed very motivated to be able to do his thing instead of just like out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like the way that we've portrayed stoners before has been sort of like, what? Oh, dude, that sucks. You know, like this guy was he's supposedly stoned. He's like, no, I'm going to do my thing. I'm really baked, but I have the motivation and the skill to fuck your life up and to screw this whole plan up, screw this escape plan up for you, because they needed me. The plot needed me to be here right now. otherwise people would escape, I guess. I don't know. So he's a shitty use of a character, but yeah, as far as actors you would know, I didn't know any of the leads, but we've got DJ Qualls and Chris Elliott sort of in smaller roles. I don't know that that's like a sounding endorsement for watching this film, but I am impressed that DJ Qualls has managed to continue to act for as long as he has. When you really think about like how he was introduced to the world, he kind of feels like a one-note character that was in Road Trip. And you're like, okay. And like, he's still acting. Like, he's still doing, he was in Man in the High Castle. Like, this dude has been consistently acting. And you're just like, I don't even know how. He feels like, I've seen other actors from other teen movies just kind of like come and go. And DJ Qualls did not feel like the kind of actor who, if you had told me back in the 2000s, pick someone that you think is still going to be acting in 2024. I'd be like, I don't know, not him. Pick somebody just from the movie Road Trip. I'd be like, not him, you know? But it's weird that it is him. Like, he's the one who is continuing to act. I don't know what Breckenmeyer's doing anymore. Yeah, he acted for a long time, but, you know, he was in, he had that Franklin and Bash. But after that, I really don't know what happened to Breckenmeyer. So... meanwhile, DJ Qualls is showing up in Carved on Hulu. So, yeah. I have a feeling this is CGI horror. So I feel like for those of you who are sighted, you know, and you're like, dude, this looks really, yeah, it probably does. I have a feeling this had a really low budget. And the funny thing is about gore and horror movies is that some people like to get into this so that they can do practical effects. And then other people get into it because they think that they've written a script, you know, and they're like, oh, let me get in the game here. I looked at the director's, I didn't remember his name. I've never seen anything he's ever done before. So actually his name is easy to remember, Justin Harding. I actually do remember his name. But I've never seen any of his work before, so I don't have anything to compare it with. So I don't know if he strikes me as the kind of director that would demand for the kind of budget to do practical effects. He's not paying a cast here necessarily. There aren't a ton of locations. But do I think he made a large pumpkin and had it, I don't want to say giant, because giant suggests that this pumpkin is much larger than it actually is, which is, from based on, that was sort of the thing. I think about like size relativity, and I think about how I've talked about it before in other reviews. The one thing that I had a problem with in the film was sort of size relativity with the pumpkin. It feels at times larger than it actually is, but then there are certain audio description. There are things that it does where it could not possibly be as large. It could not be that big in order to fit into certain places. So, unless it's the incredible growing and shrinking pumpkin, it's probably just maybe a slightly engorged pumpkin. So it's the thing that it's got is it's sentient and it has vines and it's just using them to kill people. So we're not even talking about like the great pumpkin Charlie Brown. We're talking about this. So yeah, maybe I'll put a review out for Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown the same day as this. That'd be fun. Anyway, this so yeah, it's I'm not quite sure how much bigger it is than other pumpkins. It's just kind of referred to as warped, like a warped pumpkin, which could speak to also its mindset when it wants to go around killing people. I don't know. It's silly. It's goofy. I like horror comedies, but I feel like this one definitely was leaning more towards horror than it was comedy. And the only thing that is a comedy angle here is the fact that it's really stupid in its concept. It's more like Rubber, you know? Would I compare this to like the comedy of Tucker and Dale versus Evil? No. I would compare it to Rubber, where you're like, everybody's dying, but it's a sentient tire. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just this sentient tire that is in charge of this, which makes Rubber so uniquely bonkers of a film. I mean, like, but Rubber is not like a laugh out loud comedy. It's certainly its own thing, but I don't think people would go into that being like the funniest film of the year, Rubber. It sounds like it would be though, and that's sort of what Carved is. Is that you're like, oh my god, it's a pumpkin that kills people? Oh, this is going to be hilarious. And I think he's leaning on that, trying to pull people in on the comedy route. But when you get in the film, it plays a lot more like a standard horror movie than it does anything else, with the exception of Chris Elliott. I don't know what he's doing in this movie. His accent is so bizarre. I just, anyway. But yeah, it's pretty quick. It's like an hour 35, so you can get in and get out. I love how it's like, even IMDb says teleplay by, like, it almost suggests that at no point was this ever intended for theatrical release. Like, nobody was ever thinking about the possibility of a theatrical release. Now, Hulu has some stuff that they pick up at festivals and they take around to places, but this kind of suggests to me that at no point did anybody ever go, should this be in theaters? Which also makes me think it's probably CGI, gore and effects and stuff like that. So I don't think this film looks that great, but I can't tell you that for sure. All of the little bells are ringing. All the red flags have been thrown up for me that this film probably didn't have the budget to be able to get practical effects for everything, and Creature actually get like a built pumpkin that is actually going in after people, like a puppet or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong, but that would be my guess. Should you see Carved? This is where we get sort of in the thing. I don't think your life will be changed or altered either way. I think some people will find this up their alley, And some people will find this a film that they turned off after 15 minutes. I think I and I don't I think that's fair. I think they made this film knowing it's not for everybody. I don't think he can't possibly be sitting there. Justin Harden can't possibly be sitting there thinking, I made a broad comedy that's going to play to everybody and this is going to be the best movie of the year. I think we think that about directors, but I think when you're making something that's so niche, it's so violent, and has such a bizarre plot to it, you know you're going to have detractors. You know your IMDb score is not going to be like 8.5. You know that they're not going to be like, oh my God, he's the next master of horror, you know? It just doesn't start, this is not the starting point for that. It could be, I suppose, when you think about sort of Sam Raimi and how kind of insane his Evil Dead stuff was to begin with. Yeah, I mean, he played with heavy gore and comedy, and he's Sam Raimi. So there's something to be said for that. And Peter Jackson certainly had some stuff in the realm too that you'd be surprised to be like, that was directed by the director of The Lord of the Rings. What was it, Meet the Feebles? I've seen it, by the way. The puppet movie with the yeah, that is when you piece two and two together, you're like, wait a minute, he's went from that to Lord of the Rings. What? So, I mean, this dude could go on to do something. I have no idea, but I just kind of think this is probably not going to be a huge starter for him to just have a film that's on Hulu. I don't know. Watch it or don't watch it. I don't know that your life is going to be dramatically changed either way. I didn't even think the acting was consistently good. I didn't like all of the actors in the film. I liked some of them, but not all of them. It's pretty much a film where somebody thought, hey, what if? And they have the concept and they execute it, and they're wondering how many people are going to like it. And I'm going to say sort of. It's not my favorite horror comedy. There are other horror comedies that I think that blend the comedy part of it much better, and seem to understand and are a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more meta than this. This does not have that. This has pretty much a standard horror movie trope, but with a really silly plot. And yeah, so this is back when we would say like B horror rated movies with Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This is aiming to be that, which means it could have a cult following down the road. But think about how many movies that are like that don't have cult followings. It just kind of opened and then died. And like Pumpkinhead, for example, I think would be, nobody really talks about Pumpkinhead anymore. So from the 80s horror movies. But Carved, I could go either way on it. So it's not the worst movie I've seen in the year. It's certainly not the best. It gets, I guess, points for creativity. And for October and for spooky season, it is like at least an 8 out of 10 on gore. I don't know that I haven't seen Terrifier, but I've always read like the descriptions of the gore for that. We're not quite there, but this film is aggressively gory. So it's got to be high on the gore list anyway, like a 7 or 8 out of 10 for sure. Like I said, there is no easy death. There's nobody who just like, gets like a throat slit or whatever, and just without the full decapitation, like there's nothing that's just simple. It's aiming for everything. So I'm giving Carved a C. I'm just gonna stick in the middle with this, and that's why I'm like, watch it, don't watch it. I don't know. Your life won't be changed either way. I think some people will find this amusing. Other people will turn this off. And the thing is, though, I don't think anybody's gonna love it. I don't think this is a film that people are gonna be like, this is my favorite new thing. I'm gonna watch it year after year after year. That I'm pretty sure about. But could it be something that you liked one time out? Sure. I just don't think this is going to become a seasonal rewatch for people. Could Hulu make a Carved 2? Maybe. Do I think they will? Probably not. For the same reason we haven't seen like a Grim Cuddy 2 or any of the other possible franchises they could have launched from any of these other horror movies that they've made over the years. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Click that like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the other side.